Let me first ask you about the Secret Service agent. The guy's name is Paul Landis. He talked about the magic bullet. He was there, even put himself on record at the time, and mentioned that he made a mistake in his placement of the bullet in that room where your uncle was after he was shot. Should this now open a full-fledged investigation?
The overwhelming information that there was more than one shooter involved and that there were multiple people involved has been recognized by the American people. When Congress reinvestigated the Warren Commission, the majority of that House staff believed that it was the CIA behind that conspiracy. But more importantly, the last 5,000 pages of documents that the CIA will not release. It's breaking the law now. They're supposed to release those documents by 2017. President Trump promised to release them, which was his duty, and then he didn't. We don't know why. President Biden promised to release them, and then he didn't. Among those documents, the most interesting thing is Bill Harvey's, the Miami station chief, who almost certainly was directly involved in the assassination, his travel records on that day. That is the principal piece of interest that we believe that the CIA is concealing. If you like this video and you want to learn more about me and the movement that we're building, please go to Kennedy24.com.
Let me tick through a couple of what I know are Democratic in particular priorities and just to see where you stand on the issues. You said before you are pro-choice. Is that still true?
Yeah.
So what does that mean you would do as president in a post-Dobbs America to protect abortion rights?
Well, I've said this before, that I think every abortion is a tragedy, but that it's a choice that has to stay with women, and that it's not a choice. I think I've been fighting harder than anybody else, probably, arguably, in this country, for medical autonomy, for medical freedom, for Americans to make choices over their own bodies and not have the government do that. And I'm going to continue to be a leader on that issue in all areas. So
what does that look like as a president in terms of what you could do at the federal level to protect abortion rights?
Tell me what you're talking about.
What do you think, for example, President Biden could be doing now that he's not to protect abortion rights after the Supreme Court struck down Roe v. Wade?
I don't know what he should be doing other than, I believe that it's a woman's right to choose. If you're asking me, am I recommending legislation right now, I'm all ears.
What about on immigration? You've said previously that you would seal the border as president. How do you legally do that? How do you physically do that?
Well, it was essentially closed 3 years ago before President Biden opened it up. So,
under the pandemic era rule, right, at the time of health emergency.
Under that rule, but there's a number of things that we should be doing, and there's a number of things I'm going to do. One is the big obstacle to that is allowing all these immigrants in, 7 billion immigrants in 3 years illegally.
It's actually not 7 million who've been allowed to enter. That's the number of encounters over the last 3 years. It's actually lower than that.
Virtually all of them are allowed to enter. They are coming right through. I've been down there. I watched over 2 hours that I spent there just between 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock in the morning. I watched 300 people coming through. Everybody is allowed through. Nobody's turned away.
Mr. Kennedy, I've also spent a lot of time on the border. 7 million is an inaccurate figure. It's closer to 6 million encounters over the last 3 years, and that includes people who were subject to Title 42 expulsions, meaning they were not allowed to enter.
And how many of those, what percentage of those people were turned back?
I don't have an exact figure, sir, but the 7 million you're saying is inaccurate.
There's also 1.5 million who have come over that are runaways.
So back to my question, how would you seal the border?
Approximately 7 million have come across and are here today in this country.
It is not 7 million over the last 3 years. That's just inaccurate.
Right.
But how would you seal the border as president?
A number of ways. One is that I will appoint enough asylum judges to adjudicate all the asylum cases at the border. When I was at the border, I interviewed about 150 people that I came across, and only 2 of them even said they had asylum claims. The rest of them said, I'm here to get a job. So they have no right to come to the United States, and I would turn them back at the border. I would also adjudicate the asylum claims on the spot, so that 90% of asylum cases are adjudicated normally to be specious. The other thing that I'm going to do is to make passport cards available to every American. And I'm going to do that my first week in office right now.
Passport cards.
Yeah, passport cards, which you can get at any post office, but they cost between $65 and $120, so it's a barrier to a lot of Americans getting them. And if you don't have a photo ID in this country, a government-issued photo ID, you're a second-class citizen. You can't open a bank account. You can't visit your kids at school. You can't board a plane or go into a hotel. And if you get your Social Security check or your paycheck, you have to give a check casher 10% of it. If we have those cards right now at a work site, for example, in New York, if you're at a construction site, it's illegal for the manager of that site to hide, or the owner hire an illegal alien, but all they do is they check a box, and all you have to show right now is a Social Security card. There's no photo on it. They're easy to fabricate, and they're famously passed hand to hand. People often the same card at the same people or different people on the same work site.
So you're saying you would require a passport card as a means of employment.
Right, and I'll make the passport card available easily at every post office. There's 33,000 post offices in this country. Once people know, once the word gets out that you need an ID, a real federal ID, to work in this country, that the border's going to drive up. The other thing that it will do is it will reduce a lot of the anxieties among both Democrats and Republicans about voter fraud, because it will allow us to demand a government-issued ID at the voting booth.
You're saying you would require this passport card for every potential voter before they cast a ballot.
And the major civil rights leaders like Al Sharpton and Andrew Young have agreed that if we can do this, then they will drop their objections to demanding ID at the voting booth, and we get rid of some of these issues that are dividing Americans, and we do it in an imaginative way that nobody can object to.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. tweeted out, "Bravo to Bill Ackerman. It's time to hold college administrations responsible for the epidemic of campus anti-Semitism by insisting on zero tolerance policies." So he's coming out against free speech now. So he's speaking out of both sides of his mouth. It's a
it's not. By the way, I'm sure. What is the anti-Semitism? Did they pull down posters of the missing hostages?
I don't know what it is.
That's the one I keep seeing, and I keep going. But why are there posters here? Are we supposed to
So, but the story here is last Friday, RFK Jr.'s entire field team, led by Representative Dana Rohrabacher's wife, all quit.
How many people's that?
And that's Scott Horton. He's the Mr. Anti-War, and
maybe get Peter Dow.
And so maybe get Peter Dow. So at the same time, his former campaign manager put this out. This is Dennis Kucinich's Substack, "The Math of Murder. The subjugation and annihilation of innocent civilians bombed into the dust of collateral damage does not support America, Israel, or the West. Claims for moral high ground and a path to peace." So a lot of people think that this is over RFK's rabid, crazy mental defense of the indefensible happening in Israel and Palestine right now. It is indefensible. And RFK Jr. gave a speech maybe a week or two ago where he was anti-China, anti-Iran, and anti-Venezuela, and he combined them all together. And it's just the opposite of what I thought he was.
Was he Sirhan? Did they just flip his murder switch?
Something happened. So here's what Dennis Kucinich wrote. He said on Tuesday, October 31st, 2023, the government of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu bombed a Palestinian refugee camp with 100,000 inhabitants, producing a hellscape of casualties, 50 dead, 150 injured, with buildings in collapse at the periphery of a massive bomb crater. The stated public intention was to kill a single Hamas commander.
Is this the one that broke Wolf Blitzer?
Well, that's the one that broke Wolf Blitzer. There are 2 million Palestinians warehoused in the sliver of land 26 miles long, between 2 to 7 miles wide. a containment camp known as the Gaza Strip holding indigenous peoples of the region hostage. Mr. Netanyahu has vowed to wipe out Hamas, which is estimated to have at least 40,000 members. If the ratio of 50-1 holds up, that is 50 Palestinians will die for every Hamas member killed. Then every single Palestinian in Gaza would be killed. So if you go by that metric, this is not without possibility. Perhaps the colonizers' plan.
Well, okay, it doesn't have to go that way. If Egypt would just step up and take they're good with either way. Either you can take all the people into your countries, or we can kill them all.
Or we'll just kill them all.
If you feel so bad about them, why don't you help them?
So the further prosecution of this war is, by the way, Syria has taken in over 500,000 Palestinians.
Yeah. So has Europe, and they're all protesting now, and they're all going, how's this happening?
I think there's 2 million in Jordan. I think there's 2 million Palestinians. So this idea that why don't they but we're going to get to that because that's going to be coming up in a Norman Finkelstein clip that's going to be coming up later. The further prosecution of this war is counterproductive to the security and survival of Israel and its citizens, who live in an increasingly hostile environment as the images of the plight of Gazans are broadcast to billions worldwide and to hundreds of millions of enraged Muslims and Arabs in the region. So what this war is doing, this all idea is we're going to wipe out Hamas. Oh, and then I guess you won't have any more terrorists. But you're going to make 40,000, 50,000, 100,000 more terrorists in the process of trying to wipe out 40,000. Do you understand? So this is there's the thing called blowback. That's the CIA's own term for when they go and mess things up and kill a lot of people and they create terrorists.
Well, Jimmy,
that's what the United States has been doing since 9/11, creating more terrorists worldwide by wiping out Libyans, Syrians, Afghanistans, Yemenis, Sudanese. And so so this war is actually making Israel way less safe in the eyes of the entire world because you're turning the entire world against you and you're creating more terrorists. This is not the way to deal with this. The way to deal with this is to institute international law, get rid of the blockade, and give them free access and free movement. To watch this relentless bombing and to maintain silence, this is RFK Jr.'s former campaign manager. To watch this relentless bombing and to maintain silence reduces the experience to war porn and desensitizes and dehumanizes the viewer in vicarious complicity. The objectification and dehumanization of the Palestinians, the overt racism, and the obtuseness that accompanies the mounting death toll mark a victory for propagandists, but constitute a moral calamity for Israel, the United States, and all other complicit countries. Our lack of moral code, empathy, inhuman response, and willingness to escalate the destruction of innocent people as collateral damage is short-sighted and dangerous, to say the least. We are inviting objectification, dehumanization, and destruction to our own doors. The murderous actions of Israel, supported by the United States in Gaza, will come home. Each new atrocity visited upon Gazans threatens the long-time survival and the security interests of Israel and the United States. These murderous actions, informed by a murderous consciousness, bring the world to the edge of a major war.
Oh, so they're job creators.
So there's more to it. Go check out Dennis Kucinich's Substack. It's very powerful. And so that's his former campaign manager, and I guess we know why he's not his current campaign manager.
Yeah.
Maybe he should get a guy from the IDF like Peter Dow, like Cornel West did. So that's the story. No, I'm told I have some inside information. I'm also being told this is not why they quit. That these people were always the people who quit were always they were brought in by Dennis Kucinich.
Oh.
And it was just a matter of time before they left. And they're being replaced, I'm told, they're being replaced with people who are competent and good.
Okay.
So we'll see. We'll see. And if he gets on the ballot, then we'll know. If he gets on the ballot, then he has a competent team. But if he doesn't, maybe it was a mistake. But we'll see. Scott Horton, it's a heartbreaker. I was so enthused about all the good things that RFK Jr. has to say, Kurt. He came out for free speech, and then he comes out against free speech. He comes out as a peace candidate, and then he comes out as a rabid pro-war maniac in the Middle East. So he speaks out of both sides of his mouth, and I don't know what we can believe anymore. I know he was right about COVID. He was right about all the stuff he said about vaccines. I know about that. But I don't know why he's got such a schizophrenic campaign right now. And if he wants, I told him when he was on our show, you can't have this view of Israel-Palestine and consider yourself the peace candidate. It wrecks it for you. And now it's really wrecked. That was before October 7th. So now it's really over now.
If that hadn't blown up, he probably could have been, because, I remember at the time, this is before October 7th, and I remember you were upset about it, and I was like, yeah, but I'm worried about other stuff more, because I hadn't thought about it in 17, 16 years.
Right.
Then it blew up, and now you really got to think about it, because we're throwing money at it. We even forgot our old girlfriend Zelensky over it.
Yeah, that's right.
So then I'm like, oh, and then sure enough, it wasn't just that. Go ahead and pile on Iran, is possible world war on top of that. So it's amazing the Jenga collapse of that.
So that's the story. Last Friday, RFK Jr.'s entire field team quit. Hey, we're doing stand-up comedy in Covina, California, Burbank, California, the day after Thanksgiving, Oxnard, California, Venice, California, Palmdale, California. Lots of places in the Southland. Omaha, Nebraska. We're going to be in Omaha. We're going to be in Des Moines, Milwaukee, Lansing, Bend, Oregon, Portland, Oregon, and Seattle, Washington. Plus, we're going to be in Boston, the Wilbur Theater in Boston. See you there.